Hi. Hi, everybody watching. Hello, Patricia. Patricia, as you know, I love this book, but I'm curious. I truly loved it. And I've read pretty
Thank
much
you.
all. I haven't read all your nonfiction, but I've read all of the fiction and this. And I'm just curious. Now that you've had some time with it, how do you feel about it?
I'm very pleased with it, but it was a hard thing to do. And I wanted to ask you the same question because, by the way, for those who haven't read your memoir, which was wonderful, I wonder if it was hard for you to write your memoir because I know that it was emotional for me to write mine.
Yeah, not so much. I wrote it during COVID, and I just had a lot of time on my hands, and I just started writing down stories. And I enjoyed writing them. I enjoyed revisiting. You mentioned in the book about resisting writing the memoir for a while, and I think that's somewhat common. Why don't you talk a little bit about why that was for you?
Well, I never wanted to write my memoir, and I think a big part of this, and I'm sure you relate to it, is that I'm always moving forward with the next book I'm working on, and I
Uh-huh.
really didn't. And to look back and start
Hmm.
living in my rearview mirror, and then researching my own life and excavating it the way it was necessary to do it for me to reconstruct all that, was just not something that I ever thought I would do, but
Hmm.
oftentimes things pick you and not the other way around. And somehow it just fell into place that I started playing around with it. Could I do it? And next thing I knew, I was writing it.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Now, one thing I 100% in terms of just the way I live my life, it's always out the windshield rather than the back. So,
Yep.
so that is an interesting thing. And like you, I did go back to write the memoir. You mentioned something about in terms of what motivated you, or once you got into it anyway, the notion of memory preservation,
Well,
in terms of the memoir. Yeah.
well, the interesting thing is this is the strange story in all this. I started writing an autobiographical long-winded story when I was 19 years old. And I think that one of the things that motivated me to do that, first of all, Ruth Graham encouraged that I do it, Billy Graham's wife, who was my dear friend. But I think for me, it was a form of therapy. And so, I'm typing away on what I thought was a thinly veiled autobiographical work. I wrote on it throughout all of college. By the time I graduated, I had a 300 and something page manuscript. Had I
Hmm.
not done that, I would not have preserved many of the memories that I
Uh-huh.
needed to have to tell the story. But I'd written them down when I was really young, and right down to what people were wearing and what they said and what I said. And it was a remarkable treasure to pull that very badly written book out of its box half a century
Hmm.
later and start going through it again.
But that experience, that whole notion of taking your lived experience and writing it down, and then later on with your fiction, to some extent, your lived experience and turning that into fiction, right? I mean, that's a piece of what's driven a lot of your writing.
Well, I think that some of our, at least this is probably true of everyone, maybe even of you, but I think oftentimes things that we've actually lived that are real do find their way in our fiction.
Sure.
And I realized that even more when I wrote the memoir, where I could see echoes of stuff, particularly in my earlier books, that were actually me telling my own story through a character.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I have not appeared in any of my book. I certainly haven't a connection to Alex Cross, but we're not the same person. The New York Times said something about it being the book being sort of in a positive way, sort of Southern Gothic, and certainly there are anecdotes here that are, with your mom, Pat, who had problems, and one of the scenes involves a fireplace. Why don't you just tell us about that? Really a
Well,
fascinating scene, you know,
Well,
scenes.
when I decided to try my hand at writing my own story, I started out with I was just going to take some notes because of a TV show that somebody was talking about, but when I decided, I said, okay, where do I start? What's the first scene? And
Hmm.
and the only thing that seemed logical to me was the scene when I was 9 years old on this snowy morning in Western North Carolina when I woke up and heard a commotion down the hallway. And I come to find out that my mother, who was moving at this high rate of speed up and down the hallway like in a trance, that she was burning all of our clothes and also some other belongings. She was burning them in the living room fireplace. And us three kids, we were just terrorized. We didn't understand what she was doing, and she was saying very weird things. Right. And that was the precursor to her then leading us out into the snow and walking us up the mountain, or trying to, because she was then going to give us to the Billy Graham family. And so that just seemed a very good place for me to start, because it was such a vivid memory. My brothers don't hardly remember that at all, that scene. It was so traumatic, but for some reason I tend to record these things. And that's where it began. But I always have to start with a scene.
Yeah, well, I'm the same way. You talk in the book quite a bit about this pattern of unpredictability with your family, and that relates to your dad as well, who was a bright guy, but kind of distant, right? And issues with in terms of the emotional connection to him.
My father was a brilliant person and extremely unusual. And I mean, in many ways, I'm so lucky that he was my father. And I know people will think it's weird to say that, because he wasn't a very good father, and he could be cruel. And he was, he and my mother had this really volatile and very dysfunctional relationship, something that started out as, true love that became true hate, I think, after a while. And the kids, we were caught in the middle of all of that. But they, I think they rather much destroyed each other in many ways. But yes, it was, we kind of ran wild down there in Miami. There was nobody looking after us after my father left, and my mother was depressed all the time. And she tried the best she could, but it was just more than she could deal with. And she just eventually just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, I always, in terms of therapy, I always suggest that immediately start talking about your parents. Don't let the psychiatrist. We'll talk about your parents in several. No, right, and not to blame them, but they always have an effect. My folks were functioning alcoholics, and it's a thing. I mean, you take it all the way through life. And you mention about partly as the effect of the family, as fear as your constant companion through life.
Well, I was afraid a lot. I mean, I was afraid of the unpredictability, to use your word. I was afraid of the unpredictability in our own home, because I never knew from one day to the next what my mother was going to be acting like. And then also, when we ended up in foster care because of the 2 times she had to be put in a psychiatric hospital for multiple months on end, the foster, I'm glad people were willing to take care of us, but that was a very unhappy situation, and I was very afraid of the foster mother. She kind of was a holy terror, to be honest. And so I grew up with things that did not make my world feel very safe.
At this stage in your life, do you feel you've gotten past a lot of it?
I don't know that you really get past anything. I mean, I think we learn to live with stuff, but I think that things like when you talk about living with with functioning alcoholics or whatever in your family, we get used to these things, and we may not think that they impact us that much anymore, but to some degree, I think that we are shaped by things. And I don't know in your case how much things that you experienced shaped you to be a writer. But I know in my case, I started writing at an early age because it kept me company. I mean, I loved to do it, and I loved drawing. I was very creative, but it also filled a huge void in me. Imagination can keep you company.
Oh, yeah. No, and we grew up, at least initially, in the country, and there weren't other kids around. And for me, I needed that escape, and I would go out and wander through the woods and just tell myself stories, story after story after story after story, and that was my companionship. And I had
Well,
that imagination. Yeah. And that eventually, when I decided for whatever crazy reason that I would try to be a writer, a novelist, I think part
Well,
of it,
you've,
I
you've
had that.
managed you've managed to do it pretty okay. You've managed to be a novelist pretty okay since you're kind of like the biggest thing out there. So it seems to have
Well, I don't know
worked.
about that, but it has worked well, and I can. I'm so lucky. I mean, to be able to do something. And as I said before, I don't work for a living. I play for a living.
Well,
Uh,
that's the best way to think of it. I think when writing, I think if you're being creative and it becomes too much work, then the child in you's not having fun anymore. And it is the child in us that does all the wondrous things. That's the
mhm,
creative.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, and to keep that child alive on some level, and also to get past the child in some other levels at some
well,
point. Yeah.
you got to keep the child alive and with a big voice, but you also have to make sure that it doesn't take charge of everything. So you
Yes,
have
because
to
the child
balance
can be
it.
a little irresponsible. Yes.
So, right. So we have to balance
Uh,
between the adult self and the child self.
so you come out of school, and one of the things in this relates. I'm just curious at how it relates. I know a little bit about how it relates to your fiction writing, but you're a newspaper reporter, and how did that sort of prepare you to create Scarpetta and several of your books, just as a writer?
Well, I think that journalism was one of the best things that happened to me because what journalism taught me is how to explore, how to research, how to answer
Hmm.
questions, and not to take things for granted. When someone says, oh, there's no story there, and you go, I'm not
Hmm.
so sure about that. Or someone says, oh,
Hmm.
that person will never talk to you. And you go, I'm not so sure about that. So you learn not to take no for an answer, and you learn to try to find the reasons for things, to find the story in
Hmm.
things. And, I always say, go out and look for story until it finds you. But until you move your feet and you
Hmm.
seek and you go out and try to show up somewhere, I'm not sure that stories will be that
Hmm.
cooperative because they do require us to make some kind of effort. But I have always researched my books the same way a nonfiction writer does.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I do the research for the memoir in addition to digging up all these things in my archives, which has been very carefully kept for decades now. So I had all this material easily available. But in addition to that, I needed to dig into other things. Like I knew that my grandfather and my great-grandfather had both had violent deaths. The great-grandfather allegedly fell down an elevator shaft. My grandfather allegedly jumped off the 17th floor of a building in Chicago, leaving my mother and her two sisters orphans. My mom was 12 at the time. And so I had to deal with the Cook
Hmm.
County Medical Examiner's Office and get the inquests. It
Hmm.
took months to get those and go through, and nobody in my family had ever done this before, to read the records of my relatives' deaths. And
Hmm.
so I was researching my own life as if I was researching somebody else's.
Yeah, so you can see why, as I said to your publisher, that this is, probably my favorite of your books, and as I said, I've read all the fiction. The other thing about the newspaper thing, is that the other discipline there is you can't make stuff up, or at least you're not supposed to.
Right.
So that's a different. I mean, when we're writing fiction, we can sort of, if we want to change things along the way, we're allowed to do that, but in nonfiction, not so much.
Well, and it's
I've written
interesting
some
you would.
nonfiction. I don't like it. I don't really enjoy it as much
Well, I know
for
what
that
I
reason. Yeah,
get that. Yeah, because suddenly you want the weather to be rainy and you want lightning striking over the tree over there, and then you want a
that's right.
shadow
Yeah.
to move. Ooh, all these things, and it's like, well, and you can't do that when it's nonfiction. You can't make up the weather, for example. And in my memoir, I would have things from earlier records about what people said. But having been a
Hmm.
journalist, I was a little queasy at first about actually recreating dialogue because I thought, what if you have one word of that's wrong that you wrote down in your journal or whatever? And then I thought, I think it's okay. Agatha Christie, when she did her autobiography, she has dialogue in it. But if you've ever read her autobiography, Agatha Christie had a phenomenal memory, and her memory for detail is astonishing if you ever read her
Hmm.
autobiography. So I took a look at that to get some ideas about how I might do mine.
Hmm.
And of course, I'd read yours, which is absolutely wonderful. But but yes, we're if you're going to do it, you got to tell the truth, and you got to tell the whole truth.
Speaking of Agatha Christie, I can't remember if it was in the book, but elsewhere you've said that you've had dreams about Agatha,
I
and
did have
she's
I
come to
had a
you.
dream about her.
She has a
I
message for
know.
you, right?
Well, I tell
Well,
you,
that's cool. That's cool. I like
well,
it.
I don't know what it means, but I will tell you that for much of my life, I never told anybody about that dream because I was afraid that they would, one, think I'm kooky, and two, it sounds unbelievably presumptuous because in this
Hmm.
dream, you know, I'm at this book signing and I'm coming up to the table and I realize it's Agatha Christie. And when I get to the table, she tells me I'm going to take her place. Now, it sounds like stupid. This was when I was just getting started and really frustrated and didn't think I would ever figure out how to write a crime novel. The
Hmm.
point of that is something on the other side came to me in my sleep, and it seemed like a
Uh-huh.
movie I was watching. And if nothing else, what it did is it told me, don't quit. Don't
Hmm.
quit. That's the
Hmm.
message. I will never take her place. We don't need to laugh at that thought, and I never have and never will. Nobody will take her place. But it gave me, it was like a gift, like something from beyond said, don't despair.
Uh-huh.
Keep trying.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah. Dickens comes to me. He says, "Forget about it. You're nothing compared to me.
Well,
You'll
shame on
never be enough."
Dickens. Well, I
I'm
don't know.
kidding.
He
I'm
probably
kidding.
sold a whole lot more books than Dickens did. So,
No,
but
I don't. He did pretty well. Um, Hollywood, one of my favorite places to talk about. Always fun. So along the way, and you write about it in the book, some of your experiences with Demi Moore and Susan Sarandon and now Nicole Kidman. So just talk a little bit about those because I love that stuff. And it's a funny thing because sometimes we go, "Oh, you're just talking about famous people." I talk about them because I think it's interesting. I found it interesting.
well, they may be famous people, but if you actually had something going on with them, it's just part of
Hmm.
your story. They're people, whether it's a movie star or it might be somebody that no one's ever heard of, but they're characters in your life, or
Hmm.
they pass through your life for some reason. Now, I don't
Hmm.
know how early on you started getting Hollywood productions of your work, but as you know from my experience, I've had Scarpetta out for 36 years now, and I just
Hmm.
now finally have a
Hmm.
TV show after umpteen efforts that never went anywhere. It wasn't for a lack of trying. It just never
Yeah.
succeeded. And I tell you the truth, when Jamie Lee Curtis decided to turn Scarpetta into a TV show, this was 5 years ago, when she brought it up to me, I'd given up thinking it was ever going to happen. I didn't think
Hmm.
Scarpetta was ever going to be turned into anything theatrical, certainly not in my lifetime. And so this has been late in coming, but incredibly appreciated,
Hmm.
and definitely worth waiting for.
I agree. I agree. I love her, by the way. I went to Amazon used to have this thing out in New Mexico. Do you remember those? I don't know if you ever went to one of those. And when we went, Jamie Lee was there, and we just bonded with her, my wife Sue and I. And we wound up driving her to the airport at the end of the thing, and we went wandering on this. The only funny thing about movie people is we would go wandering in Santa Fe, and she'd be all afraid that she was going to get noticed, spotted. We go, she'd wear a hat and the glasses, and it's fine. You may get spotted, you might not. It's just not a big thing.
Well, I
I don't know. I'm
remember.
sure. I'm sure people notice you. So
Well, well, I
yeah.
remember. I remember one time when we had an apartment in L.A. and Jamie came over one day. She and I were going to go for a walk, and she rolls up in her electric car and she climbs out. And first of all, she's not short. She's has quite a presence, and she had
Mm-hmm.
on a hat that was about the
Mm-hmm.
size of a lampshade that
Uh-huh.
covered. She could
Uh-huh.
hardly see her.
Uh-huh.
All these disguises, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but she's funny in real life, not
He is
just
very
on
funny. I agree.
camera.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
she's also just she's a really down to earth, just a good person.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah,
Exactly. Totally down to. I enjoyed her. Sue and I did. We thought she was great. Great. Great.
well,
Great.
she is great.
Unfortunately, we didn't do a film with her, but
Well, you
uh,
never know. You never know. Life isn't over. So,
this is
but
true.
and also I think the world of Nicole Kidman. And
Hmm.
I didn't know her. I mean, I knew of her because she's been mentioned as a possible Scarpetta for many, many years. But I'd never met her before I filmed the cameo
Hmm.
with her. and she is just a really lovely person. I don't mean,
Mm-hmm.
and not just the way she looks, but I mean, she is a lovely human being. And that
Mm-hmm.
means a lot to me. It's not, I mean, it's really nice if you actually like the people playing your characters, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And Nicole loves to work. She really works. And clearly she loves to be out there. She loves to be an actor.
And she also likes to. She strikes me as she loves to learn new things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she has worked with a forensic pathologist down there in Nashville where they're filming. I mean, she works with that person, learns to hold the scalpels, learned all this stuff, so that I'm completely convinced when I watch her in the show. I feel like I'm looking at Scarpetta, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, she wouldn't do that, or no, no, no.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
It's
uh-huh.
really seamless. It's
Yeah,
excellent.
they filmed a lot of it in Nashville
Yeah, that's where they're
for
filming it.
Nicole.
Yes, because
But
that's where she lives.
I
So
know
they've,
that. Yeah,
th-
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I went to grad school at Vanderbilt, so I know Nashville. And then
Oh,
I did the thing with Dolly,
right.
who's also in Nashville. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah,
love it down
well,
there. Yeah.
well, I have to admit that I'm secretly very envious of you and knowing Dolly Parton because I think she's so
Uh-huh.
extraordinary. That
Yeah,
that that
she's
must have
fun.
been really cool.
It was right from the beginning. I went down there and we just sat around for about 3 hours. I originally was thinking maybe do a kid book together or something. And I had a little outline for a novel, and we just started kicking it around. And he said to me at one point, he said, I've written thousands of country songs. She called me Jimmy James. And she said, I could write one now standing on my head. Want to see? And that's the way she is. She's very fun. She's very smart. She's a good business person. She's just smart and very clever and very quick, just language wise, very witty. So yeah, it was a delight. It was a delight, and it's still a delight. She sent me, and she always sends birthday presents and stuff. But she sent me a note, and the last thing was, "I'm okay," which is what I really wanted to hear from her. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was an issue, but she's okay, which is nice.
Well, it's always good to come across people who try to leave the world better than they found it, and that is definitely what Dolly Parton is like. She
Mm-hmm.
strikes me
Mm-hmm.
as somebody who really tries to leave things better than she found it, and I wish everybody would be that way. We'd have a very different world.
That would be a nice thing. Yeah, I've been lucky with it. I think Bill Clinton is similar that way. He wants to make the world a little better. So we have a nice. At any rate, enough about me. Are you done with the helicopters, or is that still
Well, I don't know. I
flying
wouldn't
now?
say I'm done with
Okay,
helicopters.
all
I don't
right,
own
okay,
one. Now, I mean, if I get a chance to fly, I'm going to do it, but I don't
okay, all
own
right,
one anymore. But I have
okay.
not given up. I still have stick time now and then, but and that's something I have to say I really love. But I'm also going to tell you that because of all the drones out there these days and the other things that
Mm-hmm.
UAPs, UFOs, what other strange things as we see in New Jersey and elsewhere,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more leery
Mm-hmm.
about going
Mm-hmm.
up in a helicopter. I'm not saying I won't, because I will, but I will. It's not the same as it was when I was really in my heyday of flying around, because these people are flying stuff all over the place, and you don't
Uh-huh.
know who they
Uh-huh.
are, or they want to get
Yeah.
close to your helicopter and film it. If they hit your tail boom or your main rotor, you got
Uh-huh.
real trouble.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I about a year ago I did my first I don't not flying, but riding one. I didn't even ride in one, but I rode in one. It was fun. It was fun.
Isn't
It
it?
was
I love
yeah.
it. But the
Yeah, it
first
was
time
in
I
from
ever rode in one, yeah.
I took one from the airport getting it in New Jersey over to New York. I had to get over there in a hurry. And it was great because coming in from that airport to New York, it can take like an hour and a half just because of the traffic. And it was 6 minutes to the east side. It was like great. It was so cool. So, some people out there in the world have some questions for you. So I'll go through some of those if that's okay. Oh
Before
no!
you
Before
do
we,
that, I want
yeah,
to say
yeah,
one
yeah,
thing. I want to say
yeah,
something. I want to say
yeah.
something for everybody's benefit about,
Mm,
I want to personally thank you for how supportive you've always been of other authors, and you've always been kind to me. And I just want to tell you in front of everybody how much I appreciate that, and
oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
and not everybody's that way, and you're really pretty special.
Yeah, no, I think you've always been the same way too. And it's nice. I mean, these strange little relate. I'm trying to remember. I mean, we met briefly, but I think just that one little, and at that point, we didn't even talk. But yeah, so someday, somewhere along the way, and we have the connection because I used to work at McLean Hospital, as you know, worked my way through
That's
college
so
out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
weird.
I know. Yeah,
That's the strangest story. I know, and
I know.
because my partner Stacy works there.
Right.
But yes, we need to get together in person. But I
We'll
looked
do
for
that.
you at the premiere when you were premiering Cross second season, but I think you were busy. You were engaged somewhere else, so I didn't see you at
Yeah,
that.
I did the first season. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're shooting the third season now, which is nice. He's a good
That's great.
cross, Aldous Hodge. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah,
met
he's
him.
good. We're lucky there. Yeah, he's, and you mentioned, with Scarpetta, same thing there. Well, obviously, Morgan Freeman is a great actor too. But the trick with Cross is that, for me anyway, and one of the reasons I think people relate to him is he has to balance that very tough working situation with his family. And with Morgan, we didn't do anything much with the family in the movies because it didn't seem to make that much. But with Aldous, he's great because he's so intense as a detective, and he's great with the family. He's really great with the kids. So we really can get to me what is the real connection. We're now, I don't know, you never know, out there. We're developing Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett has a similar thing where he's a detective, but he has this big family. So we'll see how that works out. At
Well,
any
I
rate,
think people want that. I think this day and age, in particular,
yeah,
with where people are so isolated, things are so remote, and the same thing with Scarpetta. There's a lot
yeah,
more family drama in the show than you would
yeah,
necessarily find in my books. But it's also because this is what people want. They want to
mm,
feel they're part of an ensemble.
yeah,
These people become their friends, and they become attached to them, the
yeah.
characters, and I think it's, I can see that as a very powerful trend this day and age.
Yeah, well, also, look, we wake up every morning and it's bad news, war and
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm not going to get political about it, but all these various things. And I think at a certain point in the day, it's like, okay, I just got to get away, and that's a good thing to be able to. A couple hours, we're gonna read Scarpetta, or, Speaking of which, what's coming next? Are you starting or finishing the next book?
I have a new Scarpetta that's at the publisher right now. We'll be
Oh, okay.
announcing it early summer,
Uh-huh.
and it's full of all kinds of surprises for people, and I'm
Okay.
very happy with it. It's my 30th Scarpetta.
Hmm.
And by the way, for everybody that hears that, don't be afraid because you can read them in any order. It doesn't matter. But
Uh-huh.
but that's and now I'm starting, dabbling with my idea for my next one. What's
Hmm.
next for
Hmm.
you?
Oh, geez. There's two things I can't mention. There's two. I get excited about the collaboration stuff, and I have two collaborate, but I can't talk about them. But they're both. I love both of them.
That
One's
sounds
a
stellar.
movie star, and the other one is just something. I tell you, one collab. This is the weirdest collaboration to have happened. Do you know who Mr. Beast is? Mr.
Not
Beast
I'm
does
not
all
sure.
these videos. Mr. Beast has 5 times the following that Taylor Swift does. It's just
No.
unbelievable. He's 27 years old. He lives in North Carolina. He does these videos on where all the places that videos run, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. And he's just massive following. He wanted to maybe do a novel, and I went up and visited him, and we spent about 3 hours just wandering his property in North Carolina. And so that's coming out in September. And it was great. It was interesting because he's kind of a techie young guy, of the sort of, 4 o'clock in the morning, people are still in their pajamas, and not him per se, but so it was an interesting working relationship. And their thing is like, oh, we got to shoot today, as opposed to, no, 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 I'm really trying to plan out this whole book. And, so that's an exciting one and a fun one, to do.
Well, that you're the one who really started this whole trend of authors, best-selling authors, collaborating with other people who might not necessarily write a thriller or whatever. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's and I think it's just super cool, especially because there are people out there that might have great stories, but they need some help telling them with somebody
Yeah.
that really knows how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a piece of it. I mean, the problem with it, in fact, today I had to have you know, we'll do these things sometimes. Somebody will say, can we give you, can somebody bid on a name in our auction for, and I had one today and I'm there with the guy and oh my God, and he brings us his idea for a book and no, it's just supposed to be breakfast, I don't want to take a book
Oh,
home, yeah, that's fine. It's fine. I'm
I
sure you
bet you
get it
do
all the
get,
time.
I bet you
Yeah.
do get that.
Yeah, you go out to a restaurant and somebody's, oh, I had this terrible experience in the war. Oh no, please. I'm eating dinner now. It's fine, but it is interesting. But yes, no, the collaborations. I did want a little golf novel, and then I did the couple with President Clinton, and it was great because he brings something that you'll do with your research, but he brings that authenticity
Oh,
about
sure.
how a
Yeah.
president would do such and such, what the Secret Service would do under these circumstances, and that was wonderful. And it makes me a better writer and a more careful researcher. And the most recent one with Viola Davis, Judge Stone, which really
Hmm.
turned out great, I think. And a lot of it was just Viola. Viola is push, push, push. There's one scene in that book that she and I rewrote 13 times.
Wow.
One chapter. Yeah. Yeah. Because we had to get it right, had to get it right, had to get it right. And I probably would have quit after maybe 5 rewrites, but but we did 13. So that
Wow.
was cool. So
That's
anyway, so
amazing.
the audience is Nick Weinritter. He wants to know, do you outline the stories before you write?
No,
He said that Hemingway says if a writer doesn't know what happens next, neither will the reader. You don't outline. Okay.
no. And
No,
I
Nick.
don't know what, I
Uh-huh.
don't know what is going to happen next at first. I mean, eventually I know what's going to happen next, or
Mhm.
obviously I couldn't write the books, but I don't outline. I don't do, I mean, I might make a few notes to remind myself of something, but I write very organically. I set a stage, and basically I try to work the case with the characters. And they don't
Hmm.
know what's going to happen. In a real case, you
Hmm.
don't know what's going to happen until you start investigating it. And that's what's fun about it for me because I get surprised. The
Hmm.
characters, I mean, I bet you have this happen too, where sometimes the characters I go, oh no, wait a minute, I didn't know we were going to do this right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, no, and it's interesting, Nick. If you talk about a lot of writers, and they're all over the lot in terms of outlining, not
That's
outlining.
it. Yeah, yeah.
I do outline, but I'm not a slave to it. And I'll be writing something. This was going to happen. And no, I want to do this. I want to do something completely different. Or a certain character gets a lot more interesting than I thought they were going to be, and it goes off on its own. So I do outline, and you probably outline in the sense that once you've done all your research and stuff, you probably know a lot about where the story is going, even though you haven't outlined it.
Well, I find that for me, I spend the longest period of time on the very first chapter because that
Mm,
first
mm,
chapter is like an algorithm that you're creating that is going to
yeah.
run the entire story and every
Hmm.
single little detail, whatever you're saying or you're not saying, is really important, and you're almost embedding links that you can bounce off of later from some
Hmm.
detail that you're setting
Yeah.
early on, and
Hmm.
and that is, it's not an outline, but that is my setting the stage, and until
Yeah.
I have that exactly right, I don't really keep going because that has to be, it has to be driving everything in the correct direction, and then I'm finding out things as I go along.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, and obviously I deal with a lot of different lead characters, and what's really important for me, people are so silly in terms of where he writes the short chapters. Yes, that's true, but that's not really what it's all about. And for me, it's the voice. What's the
Yes.
voice of that book? And they're different. They're different. Alice Cross is way different than Jane Smith. I love Jane Smith. Those 3 books that I wrote, the Women's Murder Club, whole different voices, different voices. I mentioned a couple that obviously with Mr. Beast, different voice, completely different voice, and a readership that has to go from 12 to 100, which is its own thing. Where you have to, where kids have to be okay, interested in reading it, and then adults, which is its
Hmm.
own set of challenges.
No,
Pamela
but
wants to know if you're writing any more. Pamela Johnson writing more. Yes, she's writing more Scarpettas. Yes.
Yes, I am. There will be one out early next year. Probably the first couple of months of next year, the new Scarpetta will be out.
Okay.
And I'm just now noodling around for a new idea. I'm working on that very first chapter I told you about, where I'm trying to figure out what the algorithm for the book is. But I do know what you mean about voice. In fact, when I was starting the memoir, that was a big question. Who's telling the story? Who is the narrator? We know it's me, but at what age? And the voice, particularly for a good part of the memoir, is really more the voice of a young person. It's a young person who's living through all of that, and as opposed to the voice of me now. But it's a subtle thing. But
Yeah.
you don't even contrive it. It just happens. Don't you find that true? The voice. In
Yeah.
fact, if you can't figure out the voice, you can't tell the story.
Well, and that's potentially a big problem, getting that voice. And in every book, you also have new characters who are important, especially villains. How
Yes.
does that person think? I mentioned the one chapter with Viola, 13. That one character is a 13-year-old girl here who, I won't get into the story too much, but getting her right was so important to Viola and to me, and getting the voice right. And she's not very verbal, so it had to be a lot of the way she thinks about the world. And that's crucial. And villains are, you don't want to write these cliches. You want the villain to be believable and real. And even if it's an over top, and people do create over the top crimes, unfortunately. But you need to understand, okay, well, how did that happen? How did that person get there? What drove them to do whatever the hell, these crazy things that people do?
Well, one of the most interesting comments some years ago, I was talking to David Heyman, who's the Harry Potter producer, among many other things that he's produced.
Sure.
That's just one of them. But he was asking me a question about who the villain was in something I was doing, and he says, because the villain is very important. I said, yes, I
Yeah,
do. I
really.
do know. I said, yes, it is. And I've never been as much into the villain as I am into the good guys. But I said, tell me from your point of view, what makes a great villain? And David Heyman said, somebody who doesn't think he is one. And I thought,
No,
that's true.
that's a good one. I like that one. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
ones that
I think we have
they're
a few
moving
running
them.
around like that now, but
The
in
ones
both
who move
parties.
among us, and we do not know that they're monsters.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's certainly one. I mean, sometimes they do know, but that's I like that area, and I've played with it a little bit. Um, Ginny Striegel has a question, and it relates to when I was in undergrad. I had to take a writing course. Everybody did, and the professor said, "You write well enough, but stay away from fiction." Which he was probably right. But so if you can remember, what's the worst advice that you've had in terms of being a writer, if you remember?
The worst advice
Yeah.
or the best? The
Either one,
worst
either one.
advice.
Worst or best? Yeah, worst or best.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would have had, either good or bad, in terms of advice. But I think the best advice is that is don't write with anything sitting on your shoulder. Just abandonment. Be the child with your box of crayons. Go play, to use your word, and don't think, oh, a good story has to have this, has to have that, and no, don't do that. Just see what
Yeah.
starts happening, and then you can always learn the mechanics of it a little bit. But
Yeah.
don't write with fear. Don't be afraid. Have the
Yeah. Yeah.
abandonment of a child, and
One
then
of the other things. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Finish.
That was about my point.
No, it just has to do with something that I'm writing, I'm finished actually a romantasy. Why? Because I don't know. I read a few and I said, I'd like to do that. That would be a real interesting challenge. But what I don't like about any genre is when people start thinking there are rules for the genre. There are
Right.
tropes. I hate that because I
Well,
don't,
there aren't.
I'm not writing the rules of the mysteries. I don't know what they're supposed to do, and I'm not going to do that. And the romantasy, same thing. Not for me. No rules, no tropes, no, And it's interesting. I mean, they just really believe, and again, it's not that readers should. I mean, they need to. What they need is fine for them to. But as a writer, I don't want to follow the rules.
Well, if you were following rules, you wouldn't have done anything you've done. I mean,
Probably not.
you're collaborating with people when that's never been done before that I know of. And by the way, writing romantasy is a whole new genre because
Yeah.
so obviously the rules weren't followed to have that to begin with, and I didn't follow the rules either. You weren't. I mean, nobody was writing about autopsies and things like
Yeah.
that when I started out. And I remember there was a British book reviewer who, when you read Postmortem, he said that he flung it across the room when he was finished because he was so angry because the killer wasn't somebody he knew. It wasn't the butler who did it. And I said, we're talking about a serial killer. Serial killers aren't always people that you know. And so, yes, I got criticized early on because I did not play by the rules. I wrote what I saw and what I perceived when we're riding around with the police and being with the medical examiners and all that. And so, yes, I agree with you that you don't adhere to rules or structure because that's what someone says. See what you say. You can always adjust these things later, but if you hem yourself in too much, then you're just going to stifle yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it is somebody all of a sudden being able to write about medical examiners and making it interesting and palatable, and that's why nobody's written about it before because they haven't done it well. They haven't figured out how to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
So
the
it's
key
different.
to anything. There's about 20,000
There
different
hasn't
ways
been
to
a
do
book
it
like this.
that are
Yeah.
wrong. And
Yeah.
there's very few ways to do it that are right with something like writing about forensic medicine and science and all that, I think. But yes, I encourage just go out and play. Let the story come to you. Don't put a bunch of restrictions on yourself. And most of all, don't decide you want to be a writer because you want to be a bestseller. You should be a writer because you want to be a writer, because you love writing, even if it's hard, and it is hard, and it's frustrating. But you should do it because it's real and genuine to you, and not because you want the results of it.
I always write with the notion that there's one person sitting across from me, and I'm telling them a story. I don't want them to get up till I finish. That
Yeah.
And that's my strength and my weakness. But it will, if you want to write books that are at least you can make a living with, it's helpful to do that, as opposed to I'm just going to sit down here and blah 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 blah. And here I read all this research, and here it is. No,
No,
I
you're
shouldn't say no, but probably not. That's
no. I
probably
think that it's about creating something that causes chemistry. And I mean, it really is. And I know when I'm starting a book, I may work on it for months before I finally feel that chemistry starts, that whoop, it's starting to come alive. And that's when I know it's working. And it's and you have to continue to have that happening throughout the whole book. And to some extent, there's a lot of design that goes into it, because I will decide I want to set a scene and this creepy whatever, because scenes, location and weather are characters to me, and I'm sure they are to you. All of that, and so, but it's important to think of that person sitting across from you and say, are they going to get bored right about now? And if you're starting to say maybe, then you go, okay, well, you better pull out some stops then.
Yeah.
Or
And
you don't want
also,
that
I
person
always
to.
go, if I'm not feeling it, I don't think the reader's going to feel it.
No,
And
I agree
also,
with
for me,
that.
there's a book that I'm doing now, and literally the first paragraph, and I just know from the first paragraph, I go, yes, this is right. This is the style. This is the way it should go. And it guides me. And now I have the voice. I have the style and the writing style and the voice and the whole. And it's a new character for me, and that's usually important for. And as I say, I don't worry about it. I don't know if you worry about it. I just kind of you have the confidence you've done it successfully. How did you feel with true crime? Did you worry a little bit about it, or just let's just go?
No, what I didn't once I got into it. I mean, when I started it, it was literally like standing in front of a blank canvas and saying, if I throw some paint on here, will it start taking a shape? And so I started with the first chapter to see if the story wanted to be told. And it so wanted to be told that I was like a stuck record, just spinning constantly, and I knew, I mean, it came to life almost instantly. It's like it'd been waiting forever for me to let it go and to take it out of its little vault that it was stored in my head, I guess. And so, but had it not done that, I would have quit. If I start something, and it's happened a few times in my life, I start something and I go, this just isn't, it's not coming alive for me. I'm going to have to walk away from this.
Yeah, I've done that, I think, twice. The Georgette, you've touched on this before. She says your Netflix. Is it Netflix or Prime Video?
Prime Video.
I thought
Amazon,
it was. Yeah,
Prime Video, yeah.
She just your opinion, and you've touched a little bit on it, but you want to talk a little bit more about how the series and how much you like it.
Oh well, I mean, it's just astonishing. The production value of it is so high. It's like watching a movie, and the actors are just superb. And I mean, I am so thrilled and actually just incredibly grateful, because I never thought it was going to happen, and then to have it happen in such a big way. And Nicole Kidman is fantastic, and Rosie McGowan, who's playing the younger Scarpetta, is phenomenal. I mean, everybody is just top of the line. I mean, we have 3 Oscar winners in the cast.
It's a great cast. I agree, absolutely. Yeah. Did you go to any of the shoot?
I went down there twice, and I'm going to be going down there. They're on season 2 right now. So, and Stacey and I are going to go down to Nashville in a couple of weeks and for some stuff that's going on.
Stop by and see
Dolly. Yeah, I wish. I wish.
Well, maybe she's watching. You never know. Sarah asks, this is an interesting question and a good one given the true crime. And she asks, what keeps you going when things get impossible or seemingly impossible to face?
That's a good question. Well, I'm not. When things don't go well, I get full of angst and worry, and I try to do something to get myself back on track. And one thing that I do, I meditate. I will spend time being quiet and thinking, and speaking to the higher power. Because, one thing that's really important to me is I've always wanted to feel I have a purpose in life, and I want to do the very best I can at whatever it is. I may not understand why something matters, but I try to get focused and just get back in the saddle. When things aren't going well, you can do some of your meditation and get yourself a little bit more grounded, but you got to go back to what you're doing and get out of the rut. Because sometimes, especially like if your writing's not going well or something's not going well, but you've got to learn to pivot. Sometimes when something's not going well, it means you're in the wrong direction. You're heading the wrong way. You got to stop and give it some thought. Why is this not working? And is it because I want it to work so badly I won't quit, or is it whatever it is? But just. There's not an easy cure when things don't go well, but here's the good thing that everybody should remember. I don't know of anybody, no matter how successful they are, where they don't have moments where things just don't go well. And part of what makes you successful is you pick yourself up and you keep going. You have to.
Yeah. One of the things that people, you hear it all the time, is they'll get so upset about whatever's going on. And they see the news, CNN or MSN or whatever they're watching, Fox. And one of the notions there, and I actually talked to President Clinton about this a bit, and we try to discipline ourselves a little bit. If we can't do anything about it, we try not to let it ruin our day. And if we can do something about it, we try to do it. But people will sit there and let things ruin their day. And I think the other thing is a lot of people, they'll just sit there with that newswork on, whichever one it is, on all day.
That is toxic.
Bad stuff. I agree, man. That's just
toxic.
Like,
Plus, you're hearing the same thing over and over and over again. For anybody, whether you're an inventor of some scientific something or other, or you're a writer or a painter or a musician, whatever, distractions are deadly. if you allow yourself to get too distracted by other things, especially things like you said that you can't control, you're not going to channel your story. You're going to have, it's like an electrical current that's going to be interrupted. And so it's very important to try to not be distracted and not just wallow in toxic information that not only you can't do anything about that, but it becomes incredibly repetitive and actually can damage your mental health.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, speaking of McLean. Rosanna Bricker, interesting kind of funny, silly, fun, asks about snacks, the snacks when you're writing. Is there such a thing?
I don't
Butterscotch
snack.
candies or anything?
I don't.
Nothing?
I
No,
don't.
yeah, yeah.
I do not snack. I mean, I drink tea. I have water, but I drink a lot of hot tea while I'm working. And, you know, I used to eat at my desk, but I was writing a particularly gory scene in one of my Scarpetta books many years ago, and I had a rare roast beef sandwich on my desk, and I took a look at it and I said, never again. I mean, I absolutely
that could ruin
grossed
your
myself
appetite.
out. So I don't eat while I write because usually Scarpetta's in the morgue or she's got her hands in a dead body, and I really don't feel like eating while I'm writing about that.
No, I don't snack
Do you
either.
snack? Nope.
No, I will coffee, but it's a weird thing with coffee. I like it really, really hot, and I usually do like 2 sips, and then I put it away, put it in the refrigerator, and then heat it up again and take 2 sips. It's bizarre. It's not that I'm trying to do it, but that's just the way I prefer to do it. Couple of sips.
We develop our little rituals. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when I was a journalist, it was, you know, going to the coffee machine, and then half the time you didn't drink it, but you'd go back again. It was just, and I will keep filling my teacup. You know, I get up, and part of it is because I'm thinking. My subconscious is processing things. And one little trick I learned that Hemingway talked about was he said when you finished for the day, when you know where you're going to start, that's when you stop. And don't think about it after that. Try to let your subconscious work on it, and go about your business doing something else.
I think it's easier for us as we have a certain amount of success behind us to be able to go, I'll be fine tomorrow, and not to worry about it as much. I think right in the beginning, I remember worrying a lot. All right, so we've done this for a while, so I think it's good. Anything that we didn't cover? True crime is out, and it's wonderful. It really is.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really, really, really special.
Well, your quote that you wrote for it meant the world to me, and I appreciate that you took the time to read it too. And it's always great fun to talk to you. Always.
No, really nice to talk to you. Someday we'll have the four of us get together. That'd be great.
We're going to make that our mission.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I don't know
Thank
what we
you.
do now. I think we just kind of like fade away here. Is that what we
Okay,
do?
well,
There's little
I
hearts are
thank
coming up
everybody
here.
for watching. Thank everybody. Scarpetta sends her love.
Thank you. Patricia, always
Thank
wonderful.
you. Always thank you, James.